What if I told you that renewable energy is now cheaper than fossil fuels almost everywhere on Earth? And yet governments are still pouring hundreds of billions more into fossil fuels every year. This video is about why that's happening and why it matters to you. Because this isn't about technology anymore. It's not about whether clean energy works. It's about power. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Let's start with reality. In 2024, the world added 582 gigawatts of new renewable capacity, the largest expansion in history. And according to the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, 91% of new renewable projects were cheaper than new fossil fuel alternatives. Solar, on average, 41% cheaper than the cheapest fossil option. Onshore wind, 53% cheaper. And that's not a marginal improvement, that is a market shift. When something is cheaper, scalable and faster to build, markets usually move fast. And in terms of new electricity capacity, they have. Renewables now dominate new installations globally. So you'd expect public money to follow the economics. It doesn't. According to the International Institute for Sustainable Development, IISD, G20 governments spent about $535 billion on fossil fuels and $168 billion on renewables. And that is roughly 3 times more support for fossil fuels. And the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, reported that fossil fuel support measures were still around $916 billion in 2024, even after a slight decline. And if you include implicit subsidies like underpriced environmental damage, the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, estimates fossil fuel subsidies reached $7 trillion in 2022. $7 trillion. So here's the paradox. Renewables are cheaper. Renewables are scaling faster. Fossil fuels still get more public money. Why? Okay, so let's talk influence. At COP climate summits, fossil fuel lobbyists have consistently shown up in extraordinary numbers. At COP30 in Belém, more than 1,600 fossil fuel lobbyists were accredited, more than most national delegations. 1 in every 25 participants represented fossil fuel interests. And that's not just passive attendance. They didn't just happen to be there. That is strategic presence. And in the UK, ministers met fossil fuel lobbyists over 500 times in 1 year, about 2 meetings per working day. And that is what power looks like. Access, frequency, agenda setting. Meanwhile, renewables lobbying exists, but it's smaller, less consolidated and far less historically embedded in political systems. And here's another uncomfortable fact. Research shows that fossil fuel companies control only around 1% of global renewable projects, despite dominating global energy capital flows. So when they say they are leading the transition, just look at the asset allocation. So if renewables were more expensive, this imbalance would make sense. But they aren't. If renewables weren't scaling, this would all make sense. But they are. So this isn't a technology lag. It's not a cost lag. It's a political economy lag. Subsidies are not just financial tools. They are signals of protection. And fossil fuels are protected. They are protected by historical infrastructure, regulatory frameworks, energy security narratives, and they are sustained by coordinated lobbying. This is structural inertia, reinforced by influence. So why does this matter to you? You might think this is abstract. It's not, because subsidies shape your energy bills, your taxes, your air quality, climate risks, and industrial competitiveness of your country. And it also shapes where innovation capital flows. Every public dollar that props up fossil fuels instead of accelerating renewables slows down the transition, even when the market is ready. And here's a real home truth about this. The transition is no longer being blocked by physics. It is being slowed by power structures that benefit from delay. And that is really the part they don't highlight. Despite the imbalance, renewables are winning the build-out race. They dominate new capacity additions. They undercut fossil fuels on cost. They are driving electricity growth in most regions. So the markets are shifting, but policy is lagging. And when policy lags markets, it usually means incumbents are fighting to preserve their advantage. So the next time someone says, renewables are just not ready yet, you will know that's not the real story. The real story is this: the economics are shifting, the technology is ready, the deployment is accelerating, but the political system is still catching up. And until lobbying influence no longer outweighs public interest, we will continue to see subsidies that favor the past over the future. And that is not a failure of renewables, that is a question of power. And power can change. But what do you think about all of this? How quickly can we wrestle power from the incumbents? Leave a comment below, and thank you for joining me today. See you again soon.